Number 10. Immortal jellyfish. The immortal jellyfish is a species of small, biologically immortal jellyfish found worldwide in tropical waters. Given the nickname immortal jellyfish for its ability to revert back to a polyp stage while it's starving or in danger and basically escaping death, researchers believe this jellyfish may hold the cure to cancer. Under normal conditions, its life cycle is divided into 4 parts. The union of the male and female gametes produces a larva or planula. It then attaches to the seabed as a polyp, similar to an anemone. The polyps then release a fura, or a young jellyfish, into the phase prior to sexual maturity. They become jellyfish, reproduce sexually, and start over. But if they are stressed by an environmental threat, the jellyfish revert. After reproducing, they return to the previous phases, becoming polyps in the ocean floor again. As far as scientists know, jellyfish can repeat the process indefinitely. Thus, they are said to be biologically immortal. They can be eaten by a predator or fall into the hands of a swimmer, but they do not die of old age, which is pretty cool. Number 9. River at the bottom of the Black Sea. The Black Sea is one of the most isolated from the world's oceans, and there is a river flowing along the bottom of it. Now, it's just not a normal river. Oh no, it's complete with trees, leaves, and even waterfalls. One major difference is that the underwater river, when rounding a bend, moves in currents spinning the opposite direction from those on land. It has been an intriguing aspect of the ocean since it was found. According to scientists, if the river was on land, it would be the 6th largest river in the world in terms of the volume of water flowing through it. The discovery of the river, announced on August 1st, 2010, was made by scientists at the University of Leeds, and it is the first of its kind in the world. Number 8. The Mariana Trench. In the western Pacific Ocean, you will find the deepest part of the sea. The Mariana Trench is deeper than the height of Mount Everest, 43 miles wide, and a massive 1,580 miles long, which is 5 times longer than the Grand Canyon. A certified U.S. national monument, only small areas of the Mariana Trench have been explored. James Cameron reached the bottom in a submersible vessel Deep Sea Challenger in 2012, with the last successful attempt to search the ocean floor coming in 2020, when the Chinese submersible Fenduji made it all the way down. Several new species of underwater creatures have been discovered in the Mariana Trench, with most living on the surface of the ocean floor, including a type of sea cucumber. Explorers will find themselves in total darkness as they continue to understand what else lies in the deepest parts of the ocean and how marine life manages to survive. Number 7. Los Mahabalipuram Pagodas. The Lost Pagodas was long considered a myth by many because of the lack of scientific evidence of its existence. But in 2004, when the infamous Indian Ocean tsunami hit, for a brief moment when the waters parted, large rock-like structures emerged from the water and were witnessed by many onlookers. The Lost Mahabalipuram Pagodas in India, making it an incredible discovery. The remains of an ancient city were found in 2001 off the coast of India. Scientists retrieved many different items from the large city, including artwork, hand tools, fossilized bones, and pottery shards. What makes the discovery incredible is that the city is thought to be around 9,000 years old, which predates to the earliest Indian civilizations that sprung up 4,000 years ago. There is still not a lot known about this ancient city, as scientists and archaeologists continue to search the area for more clues and debate how old the city really is and who once inhabited it. But wow. Number 6. The 2,400-year-old boat in the Black Sea. Archaeologists working with engineers from the Black Sea Maritime Archaeology Project, aka MAP, have discovered a 23-meter shipwreck that has laid undisturbed for more than 2,400 years. The find is believed to be the oldest intact shipwreck ever discovered. Thanks to the lack of oxygen in the Black Sea and the fact it was discovered a mile below the surface means it is exceptionally well preserved. The 75-foot vessel is thought to be ancient Greek. It still has its mast, rudders, and rowing benches. Speaking to The Guardian, Professor John Adams, the principal investigator with MAP, explained, "A ship surviving intact from the classical world, lying in over 2 kilometers of water, is something I would have never believed possible, and that it will change our understanding of shipbuilding and seafaring in the ancient world." The ship is thought to be a trading vessel. However, up to now, the design has only been seen on the size of ancient Greek pottery. discovery. The find is an archaeological first. The team have left the vessel untouched, apart from a small sample that was used to carbon date it by the University of Southampton. Number 5. $150 million of lost silver. At the bottom of the Atlantic for more than a century, a 150-year-old steamship had been found in 2003. The ship is the Republic, which sailed from New York in 1865, just after the Civil War, carrying 59 passengers and crew and mixed cargo meant to help New Orleans recover from the war. About 100 miles off Georgia, battling a hurricane, it sank in waters a third of a mile deep. Its cargo of lost coins, experts say, may now be up to worth $150 million. That would make it one of history's richest treasure wrecks. It's a dream come true, said Dr. Donald H. Kagan, an expert on 19th century coins who is advising the company that discovered the wreck. There are piles of coins. The company Odyssey Marine Exploration of Tampa, Florida, who announced the find, said it hoped to retrieve all the coins. The company has retrieved more than 1,600 gold and silver coins, and none are dated later than 1865, tending to confirm the wreck's identity, said George Stem, the company's director of operations. For some reason, even the silver coins are in great condition. Part of it is surely the physical environment down there, he said. The icy deep explorers are still finding can often preserve objects, even precious metals like silver, that normally corrode easily. It's like finding a real treasure, and I would definitely like to receive some of those special coins. Number 4. Giant squid. The Kraken is a legendary sea monster of enormous size that is said to appear off the coast of Norway. Now, this is a mythical creature, but there is some truth to it. A giant squid was found on shore in Denmark in 1853. The giant squid is as elusive as the legend it inspired. It lives so deep underwater that we have limited information about it. However, we know it has the largest eyes of all living creatures, grows up to 18 meters, and is frequently hunted by sperm whales for food. The weaker giant squid generally flees when confronted by a whale, however, it sometimes fights back when cornered, and it's not unusual to find sperm whales with scars left from their battles with giant squids. It wasn't until the turn of the century in 2001 that humans saw the giant squid for the first time, and only a few years after that when it was finally photographed, making it one of the most elusive on the planet. The giant squid has long been known to exist, but capturing it on film has taken scientists extensive time and voyages to the deepest parts of the ocean where life is difficult to sustain. Number 3. Elongated skulls. Saquayum is a cenote located in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It is a place that locals feared, and in 2012 a team of divers discovered the reason behind its fearsome reputation. An underwater survey discovered 2 chambers of the cenote littered with human bones, including deformed skulls. Archaeologists spent 2 weeks exploring the 2 chambers. The skulls belong to different sexes and ages, so they aren't thought to be sacrifices, which begs the question, why are they buried deep underwater? Archaeologist Bradley Russell, who made the discovery, believes the dead may have been buried as some form of ritual, or that they could be the victims of a plague that swept through the area. You wouldn't want them near the rest of the population, and you wouldn't want to drink the water either, Russell explained. Regardless, that's creepy. And why are the skulls elongated? Are they another species of human? I have so many questions. Number 2. Baltic Sea Anomaly. In 2011, a sonar image was taken by Peter Lindberg, Dennis Erberg, and their Swedish Ocean X diving team while searching for treasures on the ocean floor in the Baltic Sea. What the picture showed was a seemingly non-natural 200-foot circular object with passageways and stairs. The discovery looked like something out of a Star Wars film, and many people believed it was a spaceship that sank to the bottom of the ocean. Samples taken from the area in 2012 were given to Swedish scientists who said that there was nothing extraterrestrial about the area, but I'm not too sure about that. What Ocean X and the crew had found was weird, and many still think there is a UFO lying at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, and there's another expedition to the area planned soon. And coming in at number 1 is giant underwater pyramids. Off the coast of Portugal in the Atlantic Ocean is an anomaly that experts have been unable to fully understand or explain. Picked up by oceanic GPS technology, measurements of a structure were found, leading researchers to believe that two giant pyramids of ancient times sit underwater thousands of feet below the surface. The GPS data received back has the structures with a base of 8,000 square feet and about 150 feet tall, making these pyramids pretty giant in size. But there's very little explanation into their existence, leaving it entirely up to speculation. Why would they be there? Is it another hidden city? Who knows? The pyramid has been underwater for about 20,000 years. Considering this is around the time of the last ice age, where glaciation was melting from its peak 2,000 years prior, whatever civilization, human or not, that was around before the ice age could be responsible for building the pyramid. While the Portuguese Navy still hasn't determined the origins, many might question why this hasn't been first reported sooner than late 2012. To further support the idea that this pyramid could have been built by different civilizations, archaeologists from the Portuguese Association of Archaeological Research have recently discovered evidence on Pico Island that suggests their belief that humans existed in the Azores region before the arrival of the Portuguese thousands of years ago. Spooky.
Okay, starting us off at number 10 is the death sign. I feel like the title of this one should be enough to warrant it as scary, but expand on it we must. Eagle's Nest Sinkhole qualifies as one of Florida's most treacherous underwater caves, if not the most dangerous. It's a deadly diving location and it's famous for its mermaid shows, which really just means it has a bunch of lightless pockets and nooks and crannies that house a lot of rare translucent marine life. Right before the entrance of this sinkhole, there's a massive death sign. I kid you not, it says stop, prevent your death, go no further. It has the Grim Reaper on the left of it because obviously we have to add insult to injury when you're down there, and under the title it has 4 facts mostly about you dying. For example, more than 300 divers including instructors have died in caves like this one. Without cave training and cave equipment, divers can die here. It can happen to you. And my personal favorite cherry on top is there's nothing in this cave worth dying for. And I mean, they're not wrong. Some of the tunnels under there plunge 300 feet deep, so much so that people have described it as a Venus flytrap. You get in and quickly get distracted by everything around you, and you don't even realize how deep it gets and how quickly it does so. 0 to 100 real quick. It's even been dubbed the Mount Everest of cave dives. Say no more, dude. Say no more. You're not gonna find me anywhere near that. No, no. No, no, no. Okay, coming in at number 9 is the sinkhole. Now I've seen so many pictures of people literally diving into an endless black hole in the ocean, and I don't know how they do it. It's a black hole that for all you know could be hiding the last megalodon in there just waiting to pounce and eat you. I don't even get how people just free dive in there. Like, what if you don't have enough oxygen and energy to get all the way back to the surface? You're dead, mate. It's just too dark. It's too deep, it's too filled with unknowns, and frankly, it's just freaking dangerous. I think something Friedrich Nietzsche said really applies to this one. He said if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you, and I fully believe that. This picture, like I know something is staring back at this girl ready to eat her alive. Like, need I remind you guys, less than 5% of the ocean has been explored, the other 95% is ready right under her to eat her up. At number 8 we have the devil serpent, and yes, that is definitely not this creature's name, but when you look at it, that's really all that comes to mind. This snake dinosaur looking thing is in fact a moray eel, but even the website I saw this picture on titled it the malevolent moray eel. Like, that's not a compliment, mate, at all. These deep water eels are found in the South Pacific Ocean, and honestly they look like a dinosaur snake eel hybrid mutation. These little are carnivorous, they eat basically anything smaller than them, and their main predators are barracudas and sea snakes, so it's safe to say moray eels are apex predators in their own ecosystems. They have short serrated teeth, whereas others have fang-esque teeth. Imagine they were found in shallower waters and you went diving and this eel just burst out of some coral tunnel on your left, or mouth open creeping at you. I honestly can't, like, I think that'd be the first time I'd ever defecate underwater and the last time, because this thing would kill me. Filling our number 7 slot is Christ. Yes, they actually found Jesus Christ down there in the deep sea. Surprise, surprise. No, obviously they didn't. This picture was taken off the coast of Key Largo, Florida, and it's one of 3 bronze statues of Christ that are submerged. submerged. The first one was submerged off the coast of Italy back in 1954, there's another near Grenada, and finally this one that was erected in 1965. The statues were put there for many reasons, firstly to represent Christ in the New World, secondly as a memorial for those who had died at sea, and thirdly for those who continue to explore the depths. But how haunting is this photo? Like, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way at all before you guys come at me like Antichrist. It is a haunting image, like this giant Christ covered in water damage and plants just looking upwards. I mean, it's called the Christ of the Abyss, for God's sake. Like, it's haunting. It gives me the feeling like he drowned even though I know he was put there. But just the thought of scuba diving deeper and deeper into dark water and seeing this drowned figure with his arms outstretched in the middle of open water just makes my skin crawl a little bit. It could be just me though, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Now at number 6 is the fish from hell. I mean, its actual name is the black dragonfish, but I reckon my moniker fits it a lot better. This picture literally looks like this fish demon of death emerged from the parts of the ocean that are so deep they're actually in hell. Apparently the black dragonfish has light-emitting organs all along its belly to trick predators since the light changes its silhouette. It even has bioluminescent lights next to each eye that either attracts mates or helps find prey. Believe me, they're not finding any mates looking like that, I can assure you. Now the thing has a few rows of razor-sharp teeth, not to mention the thing has teeth on its bloody tongue. Like, why was there a need for that? There really wasn't. Like, God was just like, you know, this creature already looks like the spawn of Satan, what else can I add for, you know, just like a touch of panache? A toothed tongue? A teethed tongue. I rest my case. Let's keep fish well deep under the sea, shall we? Coming in at number 5 is the chair. Honestly, this image is haunting like all the other ones on this list. I feel like deep in the sea you expect to find horrifically ugly animals or the remains of old shipwrecks. Rarely do you expect to find a random inanimate object like a kid's chair. The chair in the photo is tiny, it's yellow, and it's scaring me. I'm wondering if I even want to know how it got there or what happened to make it get there. Was a young child thrown off the side of a yacht or cruise on their little chair? Did a family yacht ride go awry and sink and the chair is one of the only surviving items from the tragedy? Just giving me major ghost ship vibes and I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. No. At number 4 is Zemchug Canyon. Bro, I know we had deep canyons underwater, but this is like the daddy of canyons. Located in the middle of the Bering Sea, the Submarine Canyon is the deepest canyon in the world and is also tied for the widest one as well. At a vertical relief of 8,530 feet, it's deeper than the Grand Canyon by more than 2,400 feet. Like, if you just look at this thing from an aerial view of the earth, it's like blue sea, land, and then just a massive cliff drop into a dark blue vortex. It's nearly 9,000 feet deep and we've only explored 2,000 feet of it. Lol, we're a joke. Stats like that just make me feel like humans are just so puny and fragile and just so breakable and useless. Just a picture of this little submarine going into the canyon, like no light goes down there, it's just this eerie white torch of the vehicle illuminating parts of the ocean that have just never been touched. What is down there? Will we ever know? I definitely hope so, but I'm a bit scared to see what we find. Is my ex down there? Let me know. Filling our number 3 slot is the goblin shark, or we can call it by its Latin name, the ugliest shark I've ever seen. This thing looks like a living corpse. I've never seen the need for something so horrific to exist until now. The living fossil is 125 million years old and is found in the deep sea. I mean, of course it is, otherwise it wouldn't be on this list. I think the unsettling part of it is the fact that goblin shark's skin is semi-transparent, so the pinkish hue on them is really just a direct look at their insides, which I don't want or need. Secondly, they have these elongated snouts and needle-like teeth, but the worst of the worst are definitely their jaws. They're highly extendable, so it can just be swimming around and just detach its jaw and eat something a few feet in front of it, and then its jaw goes back to its original place like nothing even happened. Even when they're not coming outwards, they still look barely attached to the body of the shark, which is just, it's not a nice sight. They're found in depths that basically have no light, and I don't really think this creature needs to see the light, so I feel like we can just happily coexist and never see one another. It's a deal. Now at number 2 is the Titanic. I feel like it was expected that this was going to be on the list, but honestly I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I host any ocean video and I don't include the Titanic. This event doesn't need any introduction, and if you don't know what happened with the Titanic, then I don't think you even deserve to know. So there's that. But now I'm about to tell you. In 1912, the Titanic hit an iceberg on its maiden voyage and sank, killing at least 1,500 people. The ship split into two and sank 12,415 feet below the surface, and the wreckage was only found in 1985. Water pressure at that depth is freaking lethal, and on top of that, the site is just ghostly. I feel like because we had so much information about the Titanic before it sunk, that seeing the pictures of the wreckage just make you imagine in detail what would have been going on the deck, who would have been living where the last song the band played was, just everything. The pictures just ooze its final moments, and honestly, I feel like it's haunted. I know we'll never know, but so many people died in this one event and drowned in and around the same area. I would honestly not be surprised for a second if their spirits and souls were trapped in the deepest parts of the ocean with the wreckage itself. That could honestly be a great idea for a gothic horror novel now that I think about it. I want to copyright that if possible, live, right now. Finally, at number 1 is the Pacific Viperfish. You know when you're playing a fighting game and you get to the last level and you have to fight the final boss? That's what the Pacific Viperfish is. We've reached our final boss, people. This fish is in the abyss of the deep sea, and during the day it can be anywhere between 200 to 5,000 meters below the ocean's surface, and at night it comes up a bit more for food, but for the most part they're down pretty deep. Looks wise, they're only about 1 foot long, and they are ugly mofos. Ones I wouldn't want to encounter during the day, during the night, during my lifetime. Thank you. They have huge mouths and fang-like teeth and are this iridescent dark blue silver color usually, but can be light black as well. Their teeth are transparent, which is just weird first of all and just creepy, but they also don't fit in the fish's mouth because of how big they are. So they just curl back on the outside, which obviously makes it look even more scary and monstrous. And you just don't want to see it. You don't want to see it.
At number 10, we have the rock skull. This is a story from Keith Ba on Reddit. He dived in an area called the Hollywood Bowl where there's cool scenery and a sunken toilet, but he found something strange when he ended up straying from the group. He strayed because his vest had slow leaks that meant he had to reinflate. Anyways, he noticed a lionfish and began watching it before his attention shifted to a rock behind it. The rock kind of looked like a skull and it had the nose section and eye section, but he was called back to the boat before he could really check it out. He did snag a quick picture of the rock before heading back, but once he developed the picture, he saw that it actually was in fact a skull. Did his friends believe him at the time? Not really, but once they saw the picture, I guess they had to, and you can check out the photo for yourself. At number 9, we have the absent red octopus. On an unguided dive with her boyfriend, Reddit user Umbria had a trippy experience. The two divers took too long when they were looking around at a depth of 38 meters. Umbria herself started getting sleepy. They started to ascend when they saw a really cool red octopus with silvery eyes, and they had to stop and laugh at its funny face and take pictures for a bit, but that made them stay at the 38-meter depth. Staying down there leads to the boyfriend's computer freaking out and slowly bringing them back up, taking 3 spots to decompress along the way when they had only planned for 1. What happens is they reach the surface with less oxygen on reserve in their tanks than there should have been, and they begin to look for the pictures that they took at the red octopus because they were like, this is super cool. Thing is, they had over 20 photos of this same rock, but no octopus. At those depths, it's physically impossible to see red, let alone bright red, due to red light having the longest wavelength, so it's absorbed by water. What had happened was they spent too much time underwater and probably had nitrogen poisoning, and it's a similar state to drunkenness that, as the Reddit user says, makes you high and delirious until you pass out. They should have been tipped off that this was happening when Umbria herself was getting sleepy. If it weren't for their computer, who knows what would have happened. Could have passed out. At number 8, we have the sealed plane. This is one of many stories from Reddit user PIZZND, who I'll call Pizzend, and he used to be a deep sea diver with a large reputable company, or so he said. The team he was working with in this story I'm about to tell you were told to recover a military aircraft, so he sat at comms and logs to communicate and monitor the divers. They had been briefed on the situation, communication with the pilot was lost, and the team's job was to recover it so the military could investigate. The thing is, when the divers got to the plane, they found it completely intact, just resting on the bottom of the ocean. Pizzend said that the cockpit was still sealed, meaning the pilot did not eject. But there was no body and no sign of the pilot, even though it was completely sealed. After recovering the plane, the military took it, and Pizzend and his team never heard about it ever again. Kinda spooky. At number 7 is the locked fridge. Reddit user Count Dynamo saw something on a dive about 90 feet deep, or just under 30 meters, off of Vancouver Island in Canada, and had to notify the police. Count Dynamo said they saw a large deep freezer with a heavy industrial chain wrapped around it multiple times with about 5 cinder blocks attached. It was very, very rusted, and the deep freezer itself had to be 30 plus years old, probably more. Because one of the divers was friends with the local police, they were able to find out what was inside, and get this, the contents were 10 porcelain dolls, just wrapped and put in a deep freezer under the water. Why? No one knows. What do you think? Anyways, on to number 6, shadow shark. This is another story from our deep sea diving friend on Reddit, Pizzend, and he said he was installing rigging gear during a salvage job facing the boat when something smashed into the tank on his back. Several of his ribs bruised from this impact. When he turned around though, nothing was there. He reported this to the other diver that was with him and topside, and so they decided to go up. While keeping their eyes out on decompression stops, they spotted a large shadowy figure circling them. They had to wait to finish their decompression requirements because safety reasons, and during that time the shadowy figure got closer and closer. First, it became close enough that they could make out it was a shark. A massive one. As Pizzend said, he has never been afraid of sharks, but there's something about being circled by a massive shark in the middle of the ocean dangling from a chain that can instill a new phobia in the bravest men. Without a cage around them, the shark came nearly close enough to touch before the divers were lifted from the water. Pizzend said he didn't recognize the species as it was bigger than a great white shark with few gray features amongst entirely black coloration. I'm thinking maybe a basking shark that's really dark? But I don't know, those ones have funny mouths. Regardless, the team deduced that the shark is what hit him in the back as they were working below on the rigging gear. Anyways, on to number 5, no air in the deep. This one is from Reddit user Kimberto5. This diver on Reddit shared a story a dive master once told him that stuck with him. On a pretty deep dive, his dive master, or DM, found a full skeleton wearing diving gear with the air on the tank turned off. When they reported it to police, Kimberto5 said they found the full story. Apparently, the skeleton belonged to a man whose wife turned off his air while they were on a dive to murder him. Keeping this list going, let's move on to number 4, missile retrieval. Back again to Pizzend, the retired deep sea diver. Him and a dive buddy were tasked with retrieving missiles that were ejected from a military aircraft but had not detonated. They had the luck of crystal clear waters around them and had found the first missile on the ocean floor. Then his dive buddy let out a curse because he spotted a wall of sand 30 feet tall growing and approaching them. Pizzend said he hoped it was just the current sending the sand their way when it could have been something else. But anyways, the wall of sand hit them and their visibility was completely shot with complete darkness. He said he put his hand on his faceplate and couldn't see it. Like, that's right there. After that, the two divers heard a metallic scraping sound, still not able to see anything, and then the sand was gone. Crystal clear waters once again. But the missiles were gone. Not even feeling around under the sand led to a trace of them. Now the next one goes from tracing to retracing with number 3, stuck in a cave. Gordonta, or Gordon TA, on Reddit went diving in a cave with his buddy. They didn't lay down a line or anything to bring them back because they decided they were going to rely on a pipe they had seen on the floor of the cave as their backup, and they assumed it would lead them back out on this dive. Additionally, they thought they could follow the light at the end of the tunnel to help them, but 2 things. 1, they went diving in the evening so the sun would go out, snuffing out their light at the end of the tunnel. And 2, they assumed this pipe would lead them out, which was their biggest mistake. When they were 200 feet deep in the cave and decided to head back, it was silty and dark, so they did what they thought best and used the pipe to lead them. What it led them to was a dead end, a place in the cave they had never been to. Gordonta, or Gordon TA, said he will never forget making eye contact with his buddy as they both realized they were going to die. Lost, untethered, in a deep sea cave with little to no invisibility, they ended up crawling in search of the exit and were saved by a sign his buddy remembered seeing that warned divers of the dangers of cave diving, ironically, and then they both shot up to the surface. So they got lucky. Thank goodness. Okay, on to number 2, the phantom diver. Just to note that our last 2 are from our friend Pizzend on Reddit, the deep sea diver, as I've said many times, and this experience happened in the Bahamas on his first salvage job. He went down with a more experienced diver since it was his first go, and they went just over 200 feet deep. He saw his dive buddy swim into the damaged portion of the ship, looking around, and he started asking if his buddy wanted him to tend to his air supply hose since it's dangerous to enter a sunken ship. It's like an umbilical cord and you don't want that getting bent or anything because that's your air. Anyways, his buddy said he didn't want to go into the ship and that he was on the other side, the port side. Pizzend reached out to grab what he thought was his disoriented friend before he realized there were no bubbles coming out of this thing's helmet. This thing wasn't breathing and it wasn't his friend. He backed away and reported that something else was down there to topside and he expected to be mocked, but the diving supervisor did the opposite. They left bottom and started heading back up. When Pizzend asked his supervisor about what happened, and the supervisor's message was was cryptic back to him. He said he refused to put his divers in exceptionally dangerous situations and then gave no clarification. Him and his team then declined to compete the salvage, so who knows what was down there. The last story at number 1, Pizen said is hard to explain since he didn't know how he got to his position of looking up from the bottom of the ocean, staring up at the darkness above him, which is a creepy place to end up with no explanation. He said he realized he couldn't remember getting into the water or why he was there, he just couldn't move or control his body. Over the comms, I could hear Topside instructing the other diver to find me. How long had I been down here? How long had I been missing? The other diver told Topside that they grabbed him. I tried to shout out, but I couldn't even do that. After a few frantic minutes of communication between the diver and Topside, I noticed a shadow growing closer. It was moving towards me. Topside, I found him. The other diver reached down and grabbed my harness to drag me back to our dive stage, and as he pulled me, I rolled over and got a brief glance at my surroundings. I had been lying in a pile of human bones. Now, that's not an ideal picture when the explanation you heard from your disappearance when they grabbed him. Who's they? The skeletons? Did they grab Pizen and then he couldn't remember? Kinda leaves a lot unexplained. And this is why I would never watch Pirates of the Caribbean.
Alright, let's get into today's list. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have the deepest known shipwreck. Who knows how many shipwrecks lay in our oceans, considering many of them have yet to be found? The USS Johnston was a US Navy destroyer which sank during the Battle of Samar in 1944 after a battle with a large fleet of Japanese warships. Victor Vescovo, who is one of the few people who have made the dive into the Mariana Trench, was one of the people who first stumbled upon the remains of this sunken warship. The ship's remains were first found in 2019 and it is now known as the deepest known shipwreck as it was found 6,456 meters deep in the Philippine Sea in the Pacific Ocean. Victor, who led the expedition, said, quote, "The wreck is so deep that there's very little oxygen down there, and while there is a little bit of contamination from marine life, it's remarkably well intact except for the damage it took from the furious fight." End quote. This ship is so deep it took a few dives in order for them to be able to relocate the ship, which they have now been able to do entirely. There were 327 crew members on board this ship during the battle, and sadly only 141 of them survived. The diving team was sure to be respectful about their mission and laid wreaths both before and after their dives, which is just a nice note to end off this point on. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, while searching for treasure in the Baltic Sea, these divers came across something super weird. It was a 70-meter long object laying 300 feet below the sea, and to this day, no one knows for sure what it is. It's a massive disc-shaped metal object, and while it certainly is weird to find a huge underwater structure that no one can identify, the weirdest part about this story is that those who found it claim that their equipment stopped working only when they were around this massive unknown structure. There was some sort of electrical interference, but only when they got close or directly above it. Some people believe it's either a glacial deposit, which is the result of thawing glaciers, or an alien spacecraft. I'll let you guys decide on this one. UFO or glacial deposit? I'm gonna go with UFO because that is way more exciting. In our number 8 spot today, we have a USO. Daryl Miklos is an explorer who took a deep dive following maps that had been put together by his friend and former astronaut Gordon Cooper. The map Daryl was using was initially made to help identify more than 100 magnetic anomalies in the sea. During one dive at a location within the Bermuda Triangle, he thought he was going to find an ancient shipwreck, but instead found something that continues to stump researchers and Daryl himself. He came across a very strange structure that wasn't like anything he had ever seen before. This structure had long obtrusions which stuck out from its sides, and the whole thing was covered in corals, so whatever this thing is, it has been down there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Daryl has said, quote, "There's identical formations in 3 different areas and they don't look nature-made. They don't look man-made. Certainly nothing I've ever seen based on my experience, and I have years of experience at doing this. We've identified multiple different types of shipwreck material. This doesn't match or look anything like that." End quote. People have started speculating that this structure may just be the remains of a crashed UFO. If it isn't, then what else could it be? I'm feeling open to suggestions, so let me know. In our number 7 spot today, we have a giant squid attack. While diving into the deep sea in a submarine, there's quite a few things that could go wrong. Some are certainly scarier than others, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that being attacked by a giant squid is somewhere on the list of bad ones. Maybe not life-threatening since you're in a submarine, but still absolutely terrifying. terrifying. That is what happened to a pair of Greenpeace submariners while on an expedition in 2004 in the Bering Sea between Russia and Alaska. The squid sprays ink and is clearly quite stressed out, which I'll admit is actually kind of sad to see. It isn't quite clear exactly why the squid was in this area, as it is quite far north for its usual habitat, but it was there nonetheless. Researchers aren't exactly sure what kind of squid it was for sure, but all they know is that it was very, very large. I think it's safe to say that those people were glad that they were in a submarine that day. In our number 6 spot today, we have the massive siphonophore. Okay, I'm not saying that this is going to be scary to everyone, but I'm not gonna lie. Knowing that things like this exist in the deep sea is absolutely terrifying to me. So there are these things called siphonophores that exist in the ocean, and they appear to be a singular multicellular organism, but they're actually an entire colony of polyps and medusoids that are collectively known as a zooid. So a few years ago, scientists found the longest siphonophore they've ever found, and it was a whopping 154 feet long. Yep, just a huge long piece of a bunch of different little creatures all working together. I don't know why it freaks me out so much. Maybe it's because it's a bunch of creatures that all seem as though they share a brain. Maybe it's something I just can't comprehend. Or maybe it's because this thing is 154 feet long. Regardless of whatever it is, the deep sea is just as fascinating as it is terrifying. In our number 5 spot today, we have dying coral reefs. In 2009, after a 4-week expedition to explore the deep ocean just southwest of Tasmania, while there were many exciting discoveries, there was also one that was much more grim. The scientists found deep water coral reefs, but in the same moment as the excitement came the realization that these coral reefs are dying. There needed to be much more research into exactly what was causing the reef systems to die, but the worry was that whatever the cause was would extend into the shallower reefs as well, which would cause massive problems for both marine life as well as human life. Scientists needed to figure out whether the coral was dying because of ocean warming, disease, or increasing ocean acidity. Whatever the cause, if it were to extend into the shallower coral reefs and cause those to die off as well, 25% of marine life would lose their habitat, the coastal fishing industry would collapse, coastal tourism economies would shrink, coastlines would erode, we wouldn't have the same access to submarine animals which have helped us with medical breakthroughs, and honestly the list just continues on. So while this one might not currently seem like a scary addition to this list, it could have many more implications than we are even aware of. In our number 4 spot today, we have this deep sea feast. As it turns out, deep sea feasts are quite a horrific sight, as this video footage from a deep dive expedition will show you. This is the scene that scientists were welcomed to on a deep diving expedition that took place in 2019. What you are seeing is dozens of octopuses mercilessly devouring the 4 to 5 meter long remains of what is believed to have been a baleen whale. Their meal includes some of the internal organs, while large scavengers are stripping away the flesh, and those good old zombie worms are diving into their favorite meal, the lipids and fat from the bones. While this is a grisly sight, I guess it's nice to know that nothing goes to waste in the deep sea. In an environment where food is scarce, this must have been a pretty big win for all of these creatures. Still, seeing video footage of it is pretty wild. In our number 3 spot today, we have the long-armed squid. The long-armed squid is not often seen, and thank goodness for that, because they are so unbelievably freaky. They can be found in many different oceans, but they live in the permanently dark zone of the ocean around 1,219 meters or 4,000 feet deep in the sea. On November 11th, 2007, as an ROV was searching around the deep waters in the Gulf of Mexico, it was able to catch one of these guys on film. While there is still a ton that remains a mystery about these elusive creatures, it is believed that they can grow to be around 23 feet long or over 7 meters. The real creepy stance that these guys have is when they hold out their extremely long appendages perpendicular to their body, which creates a sort of elbow look. I don't know, just freaks me out. Imagine waking up and having a giant squid with elbows floating around your room. I know that won't happen, but I'm just saying, imagine. In our number 2 spot today, we have a squid graveyard. During a 2012 expedition into the Gulf of California on the seafloor, scientists came across a ton of squid carcasses and squid egg sheets, which was a bit of a scary sight, but they made a note of it, captured their footage, and just continued on. In 2015, when they returned to the same area, they found even even more, and now they really had to ask themselves, why was this happening? Well, they then took a look at the squid's life and things started to make a little bit more sense, although it is still unclear. So, many species of squid will see the adults all join in large groups to spawn and lay clusters of eggs on the seafloor. Shortly after this, many of the adults pass away. This isn't the case for all squid, however. There are some mothers who instead lay their eggs in an egg sheet, which they keep between their arms for months. When the babies finally hatch, the mother will then drift her way down to the sea floor. So, this answers the questions why the squid died, but it doesn't answer the question of why there were so many bodies in one specific zone, and the answer to that still remains a mystery. This is, however, an important part of the underwater ecosystem, as these squid carcasses then become food for the other animals that live in the area, such as crabs, sea stars, ratfish, and other crustaceans and bottom-dwelling scavengers. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Guardians of the Underworld. I'm here asking you why there are so many insanely large creatures in the deep sea. I know, deep sea gigantism, but still, why? So here we are talking about another insanely large creature. This time it's a jellyfish, which has been nicknamed the Guardian of the Underworld. This creature can reach 10 meters or 33 feet in length, and despite its enormous size, it isn't usually caught on camera. Thanks to the MBARI's ROV, however, more video footage was able to be captured of this amazing and terrifying jelly. In the 27 years that the MBARI's ROV has been patrolling the deep sea, they've only observed this animal 7 times, so it really does feel kind of special that we get a chance to take a peek at this thing in its natural habitat. While those long billowy things coming off of it appear as though they would be stinging tentacles, they're actually more like arms that help with feeding. It is thought that they use these massive arms to envelop their unsuspecting prey, and that was all I needed to hear to swear off the ocean forever. The red coloring of these jellies helps them blend into the dark backdrop of the sea, making them a perfect predator. A member of the MBARI team said, quote, "It's one of the largest invertebrate predators known in the ocean, yet little is understood about its ecology and behavior," end quote. So, like many of the other deep sea creatures on today's list, there is still so much more to learn about these guys. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the stargazer. These fish are absolute nightmare fuel despite their nice little name. Their eyes are located on the tops of their heads, which is what gives them their name, but they have this strange little habit of burying themselves in the sand with only their face exposed before suddenly leaping out in order to catch their prey. These guys are also a venomous fish, and if this wasn't enough, there are some species which also have an electric organ. Because they have the ability to camouflage themselves and ambush predators and can deliver both venom and electric shocks, they have been called the meanest thing in creation. In our number 9 spot today, we have the flying spaghetti monster. I know it sounds silly, but I swear this creature really does exist. This deep sea creature is a species of siphonophore that can usually be found in the Atlantic Ocean. While these guys appear to be one organism, they are actually a colonial organism, which means that they are composed of many medusoids and polypoid zooids. Zooids are multicellular units that develop from one single fertilized egg, and they combine to create functional colonies like the flying spaghetti monster. In our number 8 spot today, we have the wolf trap anglerfish. This is a species of anglerfish that is usually found in the deep waters just off of the coast of Mexico. While all anglerfish look pretty strange, these guys just might take the cake on the weirdest looking fish in the angler family. These guys were actually discovered quite recently, only a few years ago, and this, coupled with their deep sea habitat, means that a lot of information about them remains a mystery just waiting to be uncovered. Like other anglerfish, these guys also have the bioluminescent lure that is used for attracting prey. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Pacific viperfish. The Pacific viperfish can be found at different areas in the ocean depending on the time of day. They usually like to stay in the bathyl zone, which is about 1,000 meters to 4,000 meters below the surface of the ocean, but during the nighttime they will sometimes rise up into much shallower water because there is more food for them to eat. It's easy to pick out which fish is a viperfish because of the fact that its jaw is sticking out forward and then it has those extra long pointy teeth. The Pacific viperfish is predatory and mostly eats other fish, but will also chow down on crustaceans, plankton, and shrimp. This fish can grow to be about 1 foot long and are considered one of the most aggressive fish for its size. I know it's only 1 foot long, but hearing how vicious it is coupled with how ugly it is, and I really just don't want to be anywhere near this thing. One cool thing about this fish though is that they have what is called ultra black skin, and it reduces the reflection of anything that is illuminated around them so that they can camouflage themselves easier in the darkness of the deep sea. In our number 6 spot today we have the sea spider. Okay, if you're like me and don't like the spiders that exist on land, unfortunately this one isn't going to be up your alley. Sea spiders are giant, and they like to suck the life out of their prey. Yeah, how terrifying and honestly gross. They basically just latch onto their prey for dear life and suck out all the fluid they possibly can. They are gross, but they technically aren't actually spiders. These guys have a leg span that is comparable to some of the largest land spiders, but the things with these guys is that they carry their organs in their legs because, I mean, they're basically all legs. The good news is that they prefer really cold temperatures like the ones in the waters surrounding Antarctica. In our number 5 spot today we have the Atlantic wolffish. Okay, these guys are named due to their teeth, and honestly you can totally understand why. On both the upper and lower jaw they have 6 sharp and strong teeth that honestly would freak anyone out. Because of how strong their teeth are, they tend to eat hard shell creatures like crustaceans and mollusks, and they also are important to keeping the sea urchin and green crab population in check. The wolffish like to stay mostly in one area and tend to live in near freezing temperatures. They have a very cool feature though. Because they live in such cold temperatures, they have what is basically just antifreeze running through their bodies so that they don't freeze up. Even though they look super creepy, I have to admit that is pretty sweet. In our number 4 spot today we have the fangtooth fish. The fangtooth fish has a mouth full of razor sharp teeth, perfect for clutching just about any size of prey in its jaw. That's right, any size. They live in the deepest parts of the ocean, the deepest having been recorded at about 16,000 feet. That is, until they just so happen to feel like migrating up to the surface for a little vacation. Unlike a lot of other deep sea dwellers, fangtooths do not have any bioluminescent organs to attract their prey. But that is because they're not the sit and wait kind of predator, and instead they seek out their meal using their excellent sense of smell. They're more active than most deep sea dwellers and heavily rely on any light that may seep into their dark home. In our number 3 spot today we have the deep sea lizardfish. Deep sea lizardfish are a small family of deep water fish who are related to the telescope fish. These guys have flat heads and curved barbed teeth, and they grow to about 78 centimeters or 31 inches in length, which makes them a pretty moderately sized fish. They prefer to stay at depths of 1,600 meters or 5,200 feet, and they are actually one of the world's deepest living apex predators. These lizardfish are known to eat anything that comes their way, including other fish of their own kind. That's messed up. Despite the lack of light in the depths of the ocean, these guys have large eyes and pupils, and their vision is actually really important for their prey detection, as well as their well-developed eyes that allow them to see any residual or bioluminescent light. Not a lot is known about the reproduction habits, but one thing that is known is that the deep sea lizardfish have both male and female reproductive organs, which is thought to be an adaptation to low population density. In our number 2 spot today we have the faceless cusk eel. Anything that's called faceless certainly can't be good, and this eel is absolutely no exception. These guys, they don't have a face, and they honestly look like the dementors of the deep sea. The first time one of these was found was in 1873 when oceanographers aboard the HMS Challenger discovered it, but for a century no one else really came across one of these guys. Perhaps it's because they like to make their home in the icy waters located about 13,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. Just a few years ago, when these guys were sort of rediscovered, one of the leaders of the expedition, Tim O'Hara, told The Guardian that, quote, "It looks like 2 rear ends on a fish, really." Apparently the mouth of these guys sits underneath its body and can extend out to catch food before disappearing back inside its own body. So that's kinda gross, kinda cool. In our number 1 spot today we have the hagfish. There are about 76 different species of hagfish, and some of them are known to live as deep as 5,500 feet below the surface of the ocean. While the hagfish isn't particularly the best name, they are also known by an equally disgusting name of slime slime eels, and this is because their body produces a sort of goop that is used to ward off predators. This slime that they release has recently been found to impair the function of a predator's gills, so it seems as though it's a pretty effective shield. Aside from this defense mechanism, if their slime doesn't work and they find themselves still caught in the grasp of a predator, they can sort of tie themselves into a knot in order to escape the clutches.
Starting us off in at number 10, let's talk about the ancient computer. So that was the Antikythera mechanism, which is also known as the ancient Greek analog computer, which means computers might have actually been around for thousands of years. In fact, experts believe that it came from a time between 100 and 205 BC. This computer was retrieved from the sea back in 1901, and it was found off a wreckage off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera, hence the name of this ancient computer. There have been several replicas of this device that demonstrate how it would operate. Apparently this device was able to calculate the motion of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. Moving into number 9, we have a really old car that was pulled out of the water in Oklahoma. There was actually bodies pulled from the car as well, and this car was linked to a crime back in the 70s. Back in 1971, two South Dakota girls were on their way back to an end of school party, and this party took place in a gravel pit. And this is when they went missing, and it wasn't until 2013 that this missing case was finally solved. Well, guess what? This story doesn't stop there. There's actually a second car, and there was another disappearance of a man in his 60s. I mean, this guy went missing without a trace. There was a body also found in a car. I mean, is this real life right now? What the heck is going on? How can two cars just disappear into a body of water and it's just deemed an accident? Maybe there is more going on with this case. I would have so many more questions. Something amazing is up next at number 8. Have you guys ever heard of an underwater river? Okay, good. Me neither. I don't know what the heck this is. Well, let's take a look. It's literally a river that flows underwater. Well, at least that's what it looks like. I think this is so trippy, and I'm not sure how it's even possible. Well, that was the Black Sea undersea river that was discovered in 2010. So the discovery of this river wasn't even that long ago. This river is the first of its kind in the world. The depiction of God found underwater is up next at number 7. Now this one is very interesting. The god Hapi, which is also known as the Nile god, is the god of the annual flooding of the Nile in the ancient Egyptian religion, but this figure was found underwater off the coast of Egypt, which just gives me more questions. This statue was found in the newly discovered ancient city Heraklion, also known by its Egyptian name Thonis. Divers were able to dive down to retrieve the 16-foot statue. Next up, number 6, we have the world's richest man on this list. And no, it's not because he was found at the bottom of the ocean. I don't think someone swam down there and that's how Jeff Bezos was born. He's a robot. That's him and water just don't mix. Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos, aka the world's richest man, spent money to recover the Apollo 11 F1 rocket engines. Well, he was able to recover the Apollo 11 mission rocket that was launched back in 1969. So yeah, that's exactly what he did, and he donated it to a museum. And at number 5, we have the Stonehenge in Lake Michigan. The original Stonehenge is located about 90 miles west of central London in the country of Wiltshire. Archaeologists believe it was constructed from 3000 BC to 2000 BC, and no one knows how it got there or why it's even there. The Stonehenge in Lake Michigan has the same mysteries that surround it. It's believed that the Stonehenge has been underwater for at least 5,000 years. On one of the rocks there seems to be a carving of a mastodon. Mastodons are distantly related to the elephants about 10,000 to 11,000 years ago. Moving into number 4, we have trucks that were found at the bottom of the water about 42 meters down. There were about 120 large vehicles found, and this was due to a ship that sank back in 1980. The ferry that sank was actually quite large. Here's a picture of it. The name of the ship is Zenobia and is from Sweden, and it capsized in the Mediterranean Sea. It has now become one of the best diving sites in the world. Next up, number 3, I have to talk about the Titanic that is sitting currently at the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean. The boat sank back in 1912, which was 107 years ago. More than 1,500 people died from the disaster. The last surviving passenger on board of the Titanic actually passed away not too long ago, back in 2009. This was Eliza Gladys Dean, who was just 2 months old when she was on board the Titanic. I think that this is just incredible, and I have no idea how she even survived. She was the youngest passenger on board, but somehow was among the very few people that was able to survive. She lived until 97 years old, and for the Titanic, I wonder why they're not able to just pull it out of the water and have it featured in a museum. I mean, it's a pretty big part of history, but I'm sure it would cost a lot to retrieve it. Alright, number 2, we have this. Is this real life right now? How would something like this magically appear at the bottom of the ocean? Well, actually, this is confirmed to be man-made. Okay, I was freaking out there for a second. This is actually an underwater museum. This was created by an English sculptor, Jason de Caris Taylor, and these statues have gained a ton of attention, and it's located at the bottom of the Caribbean Sea, not far from the island of Grenada. The first exhibits were placed there back in 2006. I don't know why, but I think it's very creepy. It's cool, but it still creeps me out. Finally, number 1, we have the Sunken Pyramid. This is the Yonaguni Monument, also known as the Yonaguni Submarine topography, which is located in Japan. This underwater pyramid was discovered back in 1986 when divers went there looking for hammerhead sharks. This area was known for large populations of hammerhead sharks. There's a ton of speculations that surround this underwater findings. People believe that it could be a lost city, a lost civilization perhaps. Maybe this was man-built thousands of years ago, and it can possibly also be naturally made.